Matthew. Chapter 26. And when Jesus finished all these words, he said to his disciples, "You know that after 2 days the Passover takes place, and the Son of Man is being delivered up to be crucified." Then the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together in the courtyard of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas. And they took counsel together to seize Jesus by craftiness and kill him. But they said, "Not at the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people." Now when Jesus was in Bethany, in the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him, having an alabaster flask of ointment of great value, and she poured it on his head as he reclined at table. But when the disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, "Why this waste? For this could have been sold for much and given to the poor." But Jesus, knowing it, said to them, "Why do you trouble the woman? She has done a noble deed to me. For the poor you have with you always, but you do not always have me. For in pouring out this ointment on my body, she has done it for my burial. Truly I say to you, wherever this gospel is proclaimed in the whole world, what this woman has done shall also be told as a memorial of her." At that time one of the 12, the one called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, "What are you willing to give me, and I will deliver him to you?" And they weighed out to him 30 pieces of silver. And from then on he sought opportunity to deliver him up. Now on the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus, saying, "Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?" And he said, "Go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am keeping the Passover at your house with my disciples." And the disciples did as Jesus directed them, and they prepared the Passover. And when evening fell, he reclined at table with the 12. And as they were eating, he said, "Truly I say to you that one of you will betray me." And being greatly grieved, each one of them began to say to him, "I am not the one, am I, Lord?" And he answered and said, "The one who dips his hand with me in the dish, this one will betray me. The Son of Man is going away, even as it is written concerning him, but woe to that man through whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born." And Judas, who was betraying him, answered and said, "I am not the one, am I, Rabbi?" He said to him, "You have said it yourself." And as they were eating, Jesus took bread and blessed it, and he broke it and gave it to the disciples and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And he took a cup and gave thanks, and he gave it to them, saying, "Drink of it, all of you. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is being poured out for many for forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I shall by no means drink of this product of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in the kingdom of my Father." And after singing a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus said to them, "You will all be stumbled because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you into Galilee." Then Peter answered and said to him, "If all will be stumbled because of you, I will never be stumbled." Jesus said to him, "Truly I say to you that in this night, before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even if I must die with you, I will by no means deny you." And all the disciples said likewise. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to the disciples, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." And taking Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee aside, he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed. Then he said to them, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch with me." And going forward a little, he fell on his face and prayed, saying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." And he came to the disciples and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, "So were you not able to watch with me for 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." Again, going away a second time, he prayed, saying, "My Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done." And coming again, he found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy. And leaving them, he went away again and prayed a 3rd time, saying the same word again. Then he came to the disciples and said to them, "Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour has drawn near, and the Son of Man is being delivered up into the hands of sinners. Arise, let us be going. Behold, the one who is betraying me has drawn near. And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, came, and with him a great crowd with swords and clubs, from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now the one who was betraying him had given them a sign, saying, Whomever I kiss, he is the one, seize him. And immediately he came to Jesus and said, Rejoice, Rabbi, and kissed him affectionately. But Jesus said to him, Friend, what are you here for? Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and seized him. And behold, one of those with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword, and struck the slave of the high priest and took off his ear. Then Jesus said to him, Return your sword to its place, for all those who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot beseech my Father, and he will provide me at once with more than 12 legions of angels? How then shall the scriptures be fulfilled which say that it must happen this way? In that hour Jesus said to the crowds, Have you come out as against a robber with swords and clubs to arrest me? Day after day I sat in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But all this has happened in order that the writings of the prophets may be fulfilled. Then all the disciples left him and fled. And those who seized Jesus led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. And Peter followed him at a distance to the courtyard of the high priest, and entering within, he sat with the attendants to see the end. Now the chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were seeking false testimony against Jesus so that they might put him to death. And they did not find it, though many false witnesses came forward. But later two came. And said, This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and build it up in 3 days. And the high priest stood up and said to him, Do you answer nothing? What is it that these testify against you? But Jesus remained silent. And the high priest said to him, I charge you to swear by the living God to tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said to him, You have said rightly. Nevertheless I say to you, from now on you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest tore his garments, saying, He has blasphemed. What further need do we have of witnesses? Behold, now you have heard the blasphemy. What do you think? And they answered and said, He is worthy of death. Then they spat in his face and beat him with their fists, and others slapped him. Saying, Prophesy to us, Christ. Who is the one who hit you? Now Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him and said, You also were with Jesus the Galilean. But he denied it before all, saying, I do not know what you are talking about. And after he had gone out to the porch, another girl saw him and said to those who were there, This man was with Jesus the Nazarene. And again he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. And after a little while those who were standing there came to Peter and said, Surely you also are one of them, for your speech also makes it clear that you are. Then he began to curse and to swear, I do not know the man. And immediately a rooster crowed. And Peter remembered the word which Jesus had said, Before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. Matthew. Chapter 27. Now when morning had come, all the chief priests and the elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. And having bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pilate the governor. Then Judas, who betrayed him, seeing that he was condemned, regretted and returned the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned in betraying innocent blood. But they said, What is that to us? You see to that yourself. And he threw the pieces of silver into the temple and departed, and he went away and hanged himself. And the chief priests took the pieces of silver and said, It is not lawful to put them into the temple treasury, since it is blood money. And after taking counsel, they bought with it the potter's field as a burial place for strangers. Therefore that field has been called the field of blood to this day. At that time what was spoken through Jeremiah the prophet was fulfilled, saying, And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that had been priced, whom they of the sons of Israel had priced. And they gave them for the potter's field, as the Lord directed me. And Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor questioned him, saying, Are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus said, It is as you say. And while he was being accused by the chief priests and elders, he answered nothing. Then Pilate said to him, Do you not hear how many things they testify against you? And he did not answer him, not even to one word, so that the governor marveled greatly. Now at the feasts the governor was accustomed to release to the crowd one prisoner whom they wanted. And they had at that time a notorious prisoner named Barabbas. Therefore when they were gathered together, Pilate said to them, Whom do you want me to release to you? Barabbas or Jesus who is called Christ? For he knew that it was because of envy that they had delivered him up. And while he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him, saying, Have nothing to do with that righteous man, for I have suffered much today in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to destroy Jesus. And the governor answered and said to them, Which of the two do you want me to release to you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said to them, What then shall I do with Jesus who is called Christ? They all said, Let him be crucified. But he said, Why, what evil has he done? But they cried out the more, saying, Let him be crucified. And Pilate, seeing that nothing was gained but rather that an uproar was taking place, took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. You see to it yourselves. And all the people answered and said, His blood be upon us and upon our children. Then he released to them Barabbas, but Jesus he scourged and delivered up to be crucified. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered about him the whole cohort. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe around him. And they wove a crown of thorns and placed it on his head and put a reed in his right hand, and they kneeled before him and mocked him saying, Rejoice, King of the Jews. And they spat on him and took the reed and beat him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe and put his garments on him, and led him away to crucify him. And as they were going out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name, this one they compelled to take up his cross. And when they had come to a place called Golgotha, that is to say, place of a skull, they gave him wine to drink, mingled with gall. And when he tasted it, he would not drink. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among themselves, casting lots. And they sat down and guarded him there. And they set in writing over his head the charge against him, This is Jesus, the King of the Jews. At that time 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who were passing by blasphemed him, wagging their heads. And saying, You who destroy the temple and build it up in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross. Likewise also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him and said, He saved others, himself he cannot save. He is King of Israel, let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe on him. He trusts in God, let him rescue him now if he wants him, for he said, I am the Son of God. And in the same way the robbers who were crucified with him also reproached him. Now from the 6th hour darkness fell over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani? That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of those standing there, when they heard this, said, This man is calling Elijah. And immediately one of them ran, and taking a sponge, he soaked it with vinegar and put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink. But the rest said, Let him be. Let us see if Elijah is coming to save him. And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was split in 2 from top to bottom, and the earth was shaken and the rocks were split. And the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And they came out of the tombs after his resurrection and entered into the holy city and appeared to many. Now the centurion and those with him guarding Jesus, when they saw the earthquake and the things that happened, became greatly frightened, saying, Truly this was the Son of God. And many women were there looking on from a distance, who had followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering to him. Among whom were Mary the Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of the sons of Zebedee. And when evening fell, there came a rich man from Arimathea, named Joseph, who himself had also become a disciple of Jesus. This man came to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded that it be given to him. And Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a clean, fine linen cloth. And he laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn in the rock. And having rolled a great stone in front of the door of the tomb, he went away. And Mary the Magdalene was there, and the other Mary, sitting opposite the grave. On the next day, which is the day after the preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered unto Pilate, saying, Sir, we have remembered that while he was still living, that deceiver said, After 3 days I will arise. Therefore, give orders for the grave to be secured until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come and steal him away and say to the people, He has been raised from the dead. And the last deception will be worse than the first. Pilate said to them, Take a guard. Go and make the tomb as secure as you know how. And they went and secured the grave, sealing the stone, with the guard being there. Matthew. Chapter 28. Now late on the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the 1st day of the week, Mary the Magdalene and the other Mary came to look at the grave. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended out of heaven and came and rolled away the stone and sat upon it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his garment as white as snow. And for fear of him the guards shook and became like dead men. And the angel answered and said to the women, Do not be afraid, for I know that you are seeking Jesus, the crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised, even as he said. Come, see the place where he was lying. And go quickly and tell his disciples that he has been raised from the dead, and behold, he goes before you into Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. And they went away quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy and ran to report this to his disciples. And behold, Jesus met them, saying, Rejoice. And they came to him and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, Do not be afraid. Go and report to my brothers that they should go into Galilee, and there they will see me. And as they were going, behold, some from the guard came into the city and reported to the chief priests all that had happened. And after the chief priests had gathered with the elders and had taken counsel, they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers, saying, Say this, his disciples came by night and stole him away while we slept. And if this comes to the governor's ears, we will persuade him and make sure that you have nothing to worry about. And they took the money and did as they were instructed. And this account has been widely spread among the Jews until this very day. And the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, though some doubted. And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth. Go therefore and disciple all the nations, baptizing them into the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you all the days until the consummation of the age.